Welcome to Maturity Matters. My name is Cindy Gray. I'm your host today, and I'm here with Jeff Collison. He's the publisher and owner of a wonderful publication called The Best of Aging.
Thanks, Cindy, for having me.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. What can you tell me about Best of Aging? How did it begin?
Oh boy, began in my mind, over 40 years ago, basically. I had a really great episode that happened to our family. All of a sudden, my mom got a big envelope in the mail from a Danish lawyer, and what that did, she opened it up, and it actually opened up a world to us of ancestry and genealogy in and of itself, because her great-grandmother, who had 16 children, half of them went to America and half of them stayed in Denmark, and they had grown apart over 100 years or so, and her great-grand aunt basically put in her will that she wants to leave all of her worldly money, which ended up to be $27 for her, to all of her known relatives, all of her relatives that are related to her. And in Denmark back in the early 80s, what they had to do, the government had to actually do a genealogy search. Okay, so
because of that monetary
because of the
distribution?
monetary distribution of $27 for her part, I think, it ended up, so she got this huge document of all of her ancestors, all of her living ancestors, and phone numbers and all of that, and that set forth this whole new world for us to know that, this genealogy, and at the time there were the Roots movie was going strong and all of that, you remember that. So that opened up a world to us. And what that happened to me personally as a young child, it opened up a world of travel, and also travel and learning about older people.
Okay, so you went there based on this package and this information.
Yeah, actually I went there 3 times. One of the times I actually took my great uncle, who was in his 80s at the time, and I happened to be at that time 20 years old, a 20-year-old young person that didn't know anything. It still doesn't know much, but but I learned so much that an older person has great value. It has a wisdom, has things beyond my years, especially at that time.
Like a living history.
Like a living history. So, fast forward, 20, 30, 40 years, I had the opportunity to open up a magazine. After being in the newspaper magazine world for all that time, I had to open up one for myself. And because I believe that media as a whole has really just dropped the ball when it comes to covering the older generation. Sometimes they'll have a story in their publication or a special section, but there's never any continuous focus on that market. So, we started about 2.5, 3 years ago. It's actually November of 2010. We're a high-quality magazine, and we've had an explosive growth. We started off basically with 10,000 magazines that we printed. Now we're up to 40,000 print.
Oh wow!
Which equates to about 100,000 readership every single month, and we go to 7 different counties. So that's been really a joy for me, because it relates all of the stories that this generation has to share before they're lost forever.
Okay. So. All right. Well, I've read your magazine several times, and I have always been impressed by the variety of different subjects that are touched on, and different authors all the time too, it seems. Well, not all the time, but a lot of different authors. You've got the Medicare question. I think that the Q&A for that. That would be very valuable, I would think, for readers. And then also, too, some fun stuff in the back, and then the quotes.
Yep.
I love the quotes section. I've always loved quotes. I came across a quote years ago that stuck with me very much. And when my mom was experiencing health decline and ultimately passed, she spent some time in a nursing facility, a home for the aged, if you will, toward the end of her life. And I had read this quote, and I put this on the wall in the nursing home, basically. And I had so many caregivers there, employees, the administrator, say that every time they walked past that corridor, they'd see that quote on the bulletin board, and it stuck with them. And George Washington Carver wrote this, and you might be familiar with this. It says, how far you go in life depends on your being tender with the young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with the striving, and tolerant of the weak and the strong, because someday in your life you will have been all of these.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just resonated with me so much, because I thought, you know, when I was little, or a lot younger anyway, you feel somewhat invincible. I remember thinking to myself too, I'm never going to need reading glasses. Oh, I will never need reading glasses because I'm healthy and blah, blah, blah. I do yoga, whatever. And now I've got to reach for my reading glasses. And I'm finding myself becoming more and more like my mom was as I approach my 60s, if you will.
Right.
And we do become all of those things.
Yes, and that's a great point, because that really epitomizes what we're all about for the best of aging. And if you notice, we don't even use the word senior. Very rarely will you find the word senior in our publication, or baby boomer, or any stereotypical fashion of what it means to be older.
We label.
Or label, yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
because we don't believe in it. One of the things that we put in every single article, and you've been an author, and just so everybody knows too, you were great enough to submit an article, and we put you know, it's called "Stay in the Game," and it's
Right.
in our April edition that offers what we offer in every single article that we do, and that's a sense of empowerment.
Okay.
Empowering the reader to do more than just sit back and wait for life to happen to them. They are actually can take charge of their life. Every element of every story says to them, yes, this person did this. How can I do the same thing or better?
Right.
I mean,
Or encourage them to do something completely different, but something they think about but wouldn't have tried.
Exactly.
Maybe.
A great example is we did a story a few months back on an elderly gentleman. He's 87 years old, and I think he lives in Henry Ford Village, basically. And I got word of this guy, and basically he's a great gentleman. He wrote his first poetry book at the age of 87, first book ever. And he happened to have been blind since, you know.
Oh, I read that article.
Yeah, since the age of 5 or age
Yeah.
of 6 or whatever. Wonderful guy. Talk about, all the reasons you could just give up and not, sit back, especially when you age and you're having all the conditions that come with age. This guy you would never know. I mean, and I told him, I said, you are the living, breathing example of what we're trying to achieve with our magazine. And that really, goes to my heart and passion as far as why we're doing this magazine every month.
And didn't he have an acronym
Yep.
of some kind?
He wrote a book. It's called Die Daily,
Okay.
which is dream, improve, enjoy.
Okay.
And it's just a wonderful, and believe me, go to our website. You'll see the story on our website, and there's a place actually you can purchase his book as well.
Okay.
And
What is the website, real quick, just for fun?
www.thebestofaging.com.
Okay, and that's a nice website too.
Thank
and there's
you.
different. You can find all the previous editions and things like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And my article from April was
Yep.
in there. I was so
Absolutely.
pleased to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Talking about people who are more seasoned, shall we say, in life. I was doing some yoga with a lady a couple years ago. She wanted a couple private classes in her house because she didn't feel comfortable going out in classes and all. And she was in her 80s, and she was extremely flexible, very eager, and she wanted to do yoga. And she had a couple different CDs or DVDs and things that she would use. But she told me, she says, I get on the floor every day. I said, really? She said, yep, I get on the floor every day, and then I get up. I said, okay. She said, that way I'm not afraid to fall, because if I know that I can get up, then I'm okay. And a lot of older people, she says, don't ever want to get near the floor. They're afraid to get on the floor to pick anything up. They got contraptions, whatever. She says, every day I get down on the floor and I get up. And it was a self-esteem thing too.
Right.
And she just twinkled when she said
Right,
that, and I thought it was lovely. So I always think about her when I do yoga poses on the floor. I think, I remember her, and I'm going to get on the floor every day too.
That's so great. I mean,
Yeah.
as I said, it's one of these things that we oftentimes, stereotypical, view of what an older person should or shouldn't be. There are just so many stories, so many good ways to live. that these people know, and it's my honor to be able to bring out those stories, and what we do, and especially when we're interviewing people, we don't do the traditional way of going out and spending an hour and then going back and writing the story. No, we take weeks and sometimes months to develop a story to its fullest. Where there may be some slight cases of Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever, we want to go there, spend some time just talking to them, getting some of the facts, and then go back, do some research, go back another time, come back and go back, and we're getting the bigger picture as far as how that evolved and what their story is.
Right.
It takes time, but it's worth every single minute.
Right.
Of it. So
now, do you have a staff of people that do that?
We have contributors, writers. We have creative people that do it. We have distribution people. I mean, our whole point is that we want to have quality. I mean, because this is where I think again the media's fallen down a little bit about it. That they'll put it on newsprint or put it on in such a way that it's not very appealing to even pick up and look. We really put a lot of quality, time and effort, printing, distribution to make sure it's in the right places. We're distributed to probably about 1,700 locations in the 7-county area, and you can find them at senior centers, Coney Islands. You can find them at restaurants, all types of restaurants and things like that. So
someone could check your website for locations closest to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they could give us a call and they could subscribe if they'd like. That's a lot of people do that. The other thing that we are actually involved with the Area Agency on Aging, 1C, which is the Senior Alliance.
Right.
They actually had seen our publication within the first year of distribution of producing this publication. They actually dropped their publication that they had for over 30 years.
They were self-publishing?
That they were self-publishing. They were doing a quarterly publication on newsprint, and they looked at ours and they looked at theirs and said, Jeff, we want to contribute. We want to, you're going in the same direction that we want to be. We want to have the high quality. We want to have the same thing. So they contribute editorially. They contribute financially. They're a great partner of ours as an area agency on aging. And they've been with us for about 2.5 years now, as a great partner.
So someone who is seeking and contemplating more self-care and more as they age, or for instance caregivers, family members that need some help, and there's some family planning that needs to go on. I see in this TSA service network in the very front of this one issue you've got, where there's just a list of tremendous. What would it be? What are
tremendous
these?
Services, places, information, and even if they needed help, for example, and they all of a sudden needed a place to have a railway basically for their or a handrail for getting in and out of the shower, they can help locate a proper organization that could do that for them.
Is that home modification?
Yes, that could be home modification, could be anything. But
ways to get in and out of the front doors more safely.
Absolutely.
Falls are one of the greatest problems for people as they age.
Absolutely.
Is falls, and I've read many times that once a person falls and has particularly if they're severely injured by a fall, there's such a decline. Often the death rate is just magnified. They can sometimes within a year or more they pass. Sometimes of other things, but the fall is the genesis of their downfall, if you will, pardon the pun.
Right.
That's another reason why too, I want to get some yoga specialists on the show too. That's one of my goals. And I'm a yoga person, I'm a yoga teacher, I love it. And so I don't want to just have a yoga show, where I'm just talking about it. I'd like to have some yoga teachers, because my theory is if you can improve your balance through yoga, you can help prevent falls later on in life. And if you practice yoga and work on the balance poses, a lot of people never stand on one foot. I have a lot of students, they'll come and they'll be 20, 30 years old, 40 years old. They're teetering, their hands are flying around like windmills. And after a couple classes, they think, wow, I'm really feeling grounded in the center, enough to lift one foot off. And they say their balance improves. And they feel it in their jobs, they feel it in their homes. They're more confident. you know?
Right.
So I was real impressed with this list of services, including beyond health screenings and things like that, but elder abuse services. A lot of people don't know where to go or who to call when there's suspect issues that could be going on.
You bring up that. That's actually, we did an article, actually, there's a program that was just announced back in July. I think it was last July, actually. It's called Silver Alert. It parallels Amber Alert, but it's Silver Alert for those that are older and are wandering, and all of a sudden they are able to use now the same network and the resources as Amber Alert does.
Right.
So it's something that was passed through the legislature, the state legislature, and it's been a great thing. It finds people that, you know, that may have Alzheimer's or wandering and
get confused.
Yeah,
and lost.
And oftentimes there's laws, obviously, before that was passed, that you had to wait a certain amount of time to be able to, you know, call
broadcast
in,
this
or broadcast it.
Right.
And there was a lot of confusion as to what newspapers would do, or especially the television shows would be able to be liable to actually broadcast this if they didn't wait a certain period of time.
Oh, okay.
And obviously, with somebody with dementia and is just wandering, because they went out the door and they walked down the street, there's a danger. You have a time limit.
Oh, sure.
And
the season, if it's cold out or if it's horribly hot.
Absolutely.
Too, you know.
Absolutely.
Huh. Well, what else can you tell me then about the Best of Aging? What's been the reward for you so far?
The reward has been the readership. I mean, we do a lot of community outreach, a lot of getting out into the community, whether it be working with the senior centers or whatever. And we love it when people come up and say thank you. Thank you for, either it's the adult child that says thank you for telling the story of my dad or my mom or whatever, or the elderly person that can actually now read a magazine, because we've done a couple things on the magazine that are different from other publications. The type is a little bit bigger.
Thank you.
Yeah,
by the way.
Well, for me too. But it's not so big to be insulting. We don't want to insult anybody, and we want to have it a little bit bigger so it can be read. And the other thing that we do, we never ever, what they call in newspapers, we never jump a story. In other words, it starts and ends, it goes from page 1 to page 3. It will never continue on to page 12 or whatever.
I hate that.
Yeah, so people that may have mild dementia or whatever not know to jump to page 16 can finally read an entire story.
And people can miss the end too, and then get misinformation if they don't get that.
Exactly, or they get halfway through it and it jumps and they never find it and they said, that didn't make sense.
I noticed too on the front you've got the article such and such, then page 10. So you can go right from the cover to the page.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've been, the other thing that we've been very fortunate about, even within our first year of publication, there are actually what is called the National Mature Media Awards, and this is a national organization that all the 50-plus magazines, sort of submit all of their articles and things for consideration to compete against each other.
Who judges that? Who is that?
Actually, whether it be, there's actually a 50, 60 different of our peers, basically, whether it be people that are in the industry, the senior industry, or editors or publishers or whatever. We were fortunate enough to actually win 6 of the 35 awards in our first year of publication nationally.
In your first year?
Yeah, and
I was thinking how young you really are in the business, and you did it in the first year.
No, yeah, but one of the things that we're fortunate to do, because there's actually 2 categories that you can compete in. You have a national category, which AARP is basically the only one in that category, and then everybody else. And we competed with about 300 different organizations, and we won 6 of the 35 awards. And we were very fortunate to, again, we're very happy and proud to know that we're on the right track and being able to.
Now, are you available throughout all of Michigan? Or
nope, just actually the seven counties here in southeast Michigan.
Any hopes for expansion then?
Possibly someday. It's always in our thoughts. We've been approached by other areas of the country to say, Jeff, can I replicate your publication over in Arizona or California or whatever. It's possible. One of the things, but we're having a great time right now.
And it's a personal touch by being smaller too.
Absolutely.
You know what's out there.
Yeah, we're able to bring out those stories of our readers.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Well, I noticed too that in January and July you do a housing guide.
Yes, yes.
A summer housing, or a
yep.
summer fall housing guide.
Yeah, twice a year we produce this new guide. It's a new type of guide, and it's a alternative to the traditional guide. It actually allows a reader to see the whole picture of their housing options, whether it's staying in their home or going to someplace else. So we're very proud of that, and that's something that we'd like to really keep on promoting.
Right. Well, that's quite a significant subject and something I'd like to talk to you about in more detail. When we spoke about this show in general, I mentioned to you that I read an article in the June issue of AARP Bulletin. It was about cooperative living, and it was a fascinating article called Home Sweet Home, and a group of women, 3 women basically, that bought a home together. They pooled their resources and bought a home together, and that was one alternative for them to be able to live in a neighborhood they might not have been able to afford to live in, but they pooled their resources. They were able to find this home that they all agreed they loved, and there was more security, more community feeling that they had. They were all 3 living alone for various reasons. And I was fascinated by that article, and it got me thinking about that. And then here you've got this guide too, so that kind of goes hand in hand with trends in living situations as people age.
Absolutely. There's more and more options out there, and part of our mission is to give that education out to our readership. You don't just have to move into a nursing home. You don't just have to do this. You don't just have to do that.
Right.
You can do a lot of different things.
Yeah, and be creative and think about it. Matter of fact, in the guide on page 12, there's what are your housing options? Sue Ronenkamp. This was a real good article too. I read. There was a different one in here though about multiple generations under one roof. That was the one. That was fascinating, about how they've got grandparents, parents, children all in one roof, and it really smacks of the olden days.
Yes.
Am I wrong in that, or is it going back to?
No, that's amazing, because it was in the 50s and 60s where we started actually coming up with the idea of nursing homes and sort of offshooting that that process, and but you're right, it used to be so, and I have many stories we can talk later on, but that again, that's one of those things that's near and dear to my heart, of what is possible based upon other people's desires and information.
Well, is that something we can talk about later then?
Absolutely,
too?
would love to come back.
All right. Well, good. Well, we'll wind this up, and I wanted to thank Jeff Collison again, the publisher and owner of the Best of Aging magazine. It's been a fascinating discussion, and I hope a lot of people will check out your website, www.thebestofaging.com, right, and find out where they can get their own issues of this, and also read past issues, other things on there too, I'm assuming, to look at, and help them create a safety network for quality of life as they progress in their years.
Great.
Okay. So thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Cindy.
You're very welcome.
It.